In today's outing, we are going to have a look at the almost forgotten history of a golden age of Islam, when a lot of work was done for the development of secular sciences, mathematics, geography, medicine, and also basically the material sciences. The entire history of science and technology, physical sciences and other sciences, can be said to be like the event called hop, step and jump. Well, jump is the modern era after Renaissance. Hop is the days of the ancient Greeks, Aristotle and his predecessors, Plato and many others, Archimedes, this, that. There is a galaxy of people who worked together. But then, after the Roman Empire was established, there was a, I'll not say zero, but near zero development of these sciences. And they concentrated on expansions, wars, this and that. Anyway, that was the call of the times. And then came, in the 7th century, sees the advent of Islam in the deserts of Arabia, starting from the town of Mecca, with the hijrah of the Holy Prophet to Medina, the caliphates, the Rashidun Caliphate, starting with Caliph Abu Bakr, followed by Caliph Umar, Caliph Usman, Caliph Ali, Caliph Hassan, and then Amir Muawiyah and others. So therefrom it started the kind of a kingship in Islam, and large stretches of time they were peaceful. And these stretches, now it starts, I should not hold myself from saying that the first ayah of the Holy Quran was Iqra bi ismi rabbikal ladzi, read in the name of thy Lord. So things started. People helped each other, and the teaching and learning process started. Then there is a saying by the Prophet, which is also very important in the development of the Islamic sciences and the endeavors and the results that they achieved, is Atlabul ilm law kana bis-sin. Acquire ilm. I will not translate that. Acquire ilm, even if it is from China, which was supposed to be a very far off place in those days. So of course, there was no divine knowledge to be, of course, every knowledge is divine in one way or the other. And then there was another saying that continued education is a must for all followers of Prophet Muhammad. He says that from Mahed to the Lahed, a person is required to learn, and my own thing that within brackets, and to teach. Mahed means the cradle and Lahed means the grave. So these were some of the mantras which were taken up later on, and there came the Medina school a few decades after the death of the Holy Prophet, which was established and which was, which flourished under the guidance of his progeny, Imam Zainul Abdin, Imam Baqirul Ulum, and Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, who was later is claimed to be the teacher of some of the later Imams, and then Jabir bin Hayyan, the alchemist. Okay. After that, Umayyad dynasty came the Abbasids, and Abbasids were in they established their seat of governance in some places in and around modern Iraq. These are the times which are said to be the golden age. So besides the three imams that I have just told you, there was again one of the earliest scientists who was interested in alchemy was Khalid ibn Yazid in Damascus, and he was interested in translating some of the old texts of Greek texts and from other places like Egypt, and languages spoken over there. Thereafter comes a long inventory of a big galaxy of one after the other scientists, and a 750 odd years the Islamic sciences, Islamic knowledge, Islamic technology, Islamic engineering, and particularly Islamic knowledge of trigonometry, algebra, and many other sciences, astronomy, that was at the top. Now, recently, there were some debates that this step of the contribution of the Muslims that was looked down upon by people from the West, and then some scholars, they studied and they came up with the contribution of these giants. Many of them are there. We'll have occasion in the due course of time to talk about them, but today I concentrate on introducing to you what was studied, and then 1001 inventions in the field of sciences and engineering and technology. They were studied, then shortlisted, and I'm going to talk about the 10 Muslim inventions that shaped our world as it is today. Well, the top outstanding Muslim inventions, they have been put in the following order. The first one is in the field of surgery, which was developed till in 1000 AD. Zahrawi, he wrote a treatise, 1500 pages of illustrated encyclopedia in surgery, okay, which remained a medical reference for the next 500 to 600 years all over the world. Now, one of the very interesting things that I'm just mentioning from among hundreds of things that Zahrawi established is the use of dissolving cat gut, which was used by him and his fellows to stitch wounds. Beforehand, a second surgery was needed to remove the sutures. Okay, so this was one of the major developments that took place. Zahrawi, I will tell you, he was not a pioneer, but Zahrawi also performed the first Caesarean operation and also created the first pair of forceps, among many things. Now, one of the second inventions which was mentioned by the group of these scientists and technologists was coffee, cappuccino, coffee. And coffee was brewed in the 9th century in Yemen. It started from Yemen, and it helped Sufis stay up during the late nights in their own way of prayers. Later on, this went to Cairo, and in the 13th century, it went to Turkey. So there is Turkish coffee is very famous these days. And to Europe, coffee reached in the 16th century via the Muslim parts of Italy, and particularly from Venice. And today we know that it is a multi-billion dollar enterprise. The coffee is taken all over the world. The third thing that they listed was the flying machine. A flying machine was a flying machine kind of an apparatus that was designed by one scientist by the name of Abbas ibn Firnas, who in the modern day Spain, in Cordoba, that is Andalusia, he designed a winged apparatus resembling a bird costume. And for demonstration, Abbas ibn Firnas, he himself volunteered to do it, and in a trial near Cordoba, Firnas flew upward for a few moments and then he fell down. Of course, he broke he wounded his back. Thereafter, this experiment was not carried on because people were afraid of having grievous injuries in doing that. Until in Italy, Leonardo da Vinci, the famous Leonardo da Vinci, he designed a machine, and of course, remember, that time the motors were not there. So he designed a machine I think 400 years thereafter. Leonardo da Vinci, inspired by Abbas Firnas, made, and was then, as we know, as we were told, it was the Wright brothers who could do it later on in this century. The fourth establishment which is credited to the Muslims, and that is credited to two Muslim women. Although we know that in the ancient India there were universities of Nalanda and Takshila and many other places. After that, even in the Islamic world, there were so many universities and the houses of learning. But 859, two Fiqhi sisters in the modern day Morocco, in the city of Fez, they built a university, a functional university which was giving degrees, had been giving degrees and is giving degrees till now. So it is the oldest university in the world that was established by these two sisters. One was Fatima and the other was Maryam. Fatima established the structure of the university, and Maryam established a place of learning along with the mosque. Together, today we have Al-Khwarizmi Mosque and University in Morocco. So university system was where students from far and off would come, and like in the days of Aristotle, like in the days of Alexander the Great, they will be looked after and they will be fed and they will be involved in the process of learning and teaching. Now, it shows that learning is at the core of Islamic tradition, and it gives, inspires young women around the world today. So that, as I know, in the city of Riyadh, there is Women's University which has been established by Princess Nora, and this university is so big that the girls, they travel from one faculty to another faculty to another faculty on an in-campus train. Okay. So they have spent a lot of money in the Middle East these days. Now, the fifth major thing, which was picked up by these people, was the algebra. Algebra is one of the inventions of Muslims who learned and who established many norms about the algebra. They connected algebra and geometry and arithmetics, etc. And one of the major books was by a Persian scholar that we know, Muhammad bin Musa al-Khwarizmi. And he was from Khwarizm. And today everybody knows that there is a word, algorithm, and that comes from the name of Muhammad bin Musa al-Khwarizmi. Now, he wrote a book by the name of Kitab al-Jabr wal-Muqabila, and that translated means it's a book of reasoning and balancing. This is a 9th century book which was used across the various forums, and particularly for deciding inheritance and its intricacies. This was built on the roots of Greek and Hindu systems. Okay, algebraic order was a unifying system of rational numbers, irrational numbers, and geometrical magnitudes, besides many other things. He was the first to introduce the concept of raising a number to a power, like 7 raised to the power 5, etc. Okay? He was a giant among giants. He was not a lone star, but there were so many people and so many giants who worked in the field of mathematics, algebra, astronomy, etc. The next item which has been highlighted by these people is the subject of optics. And to quote Professor Hassani, who led this project, says many of the most important advances in the study of optics came from the Muslim world. And the scientist who was a doyen at that time, around 1000 AD, that was al-Hashim, which is known as al-Haytham. He proved, contrary to what Euclid and Ptolemy said, and that was the state of knowledge for about more than 1000 years, that humans see objects by light reflecting off the objects and entering the eye. He discussed the camera obscura and explained the phenomenon that how the eye sees images upright due to the connection to the optic nerve and brain. So optics was one of the subjects which had the attention of these giants, and al-Haytham, al-Hashim ibn Haytham, he was outstanding. The 7th item which they have discussed is that the contribution of Muslims to the world has been music. Though in Orthodox music is kind of band, etc. Okay, Muslim musicians have had a profound impact on Europe during and after Renaissance. And the centers of music were Baghdad and Cordoba. And musicians from these places, they were invited in Europe to compare them with the European musicians. And the instruments that arrived in Europe through the Middle East, they were the lute and the rahab, which is an ancestor of the violin. Modern musical scales are also said to be from the Arabic alphabets. Like we have in India, it is sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, okay, do re, etc. The next item that they have discussed is the invention of toothbrush, and that toothbrush was used by the Prophet himself in around 600 AD, and they were the twigs from the miswak tree, which is also even today used in some of the toothpaste. The 9th thing, and which is revolutionary, in that thing is the introduction of the crank by Al-Jazari, 12th century, and many of the basics of modern automatics, they are based on that used first in the Muslim world, wherein they had this revolutionary crank connecting rod system, and where the rotary motion was converted into the linear motion, and it enabled the lifting of the heavy objects and with relative ease. This exploded with its access to the globe, and it led to everything from the bicycle to the internal combustion engine. The 10th item is, last though not the least, is the establishment of hospitals. A hospital was established in 872 in Cairo, and the name is Ahmad ibn Tulin Hospital, where free care for anyone who reached the hospital was available. And this the policy is based on the Muslim tradition of caring for all who are sick. Okay. Now there we come to an end of this introductory lecture. In the following we'll talk introduce the various scientists who contributed to this stream of knowledge which was flowing. But I should mention at the end that there was, most of these things came from the donations and cares and endowments, etc., that were available to these scientists. So in this endeavor, I have dared just to introduce the top of the glacier. It's just a glimpse of what has been a contribution which has by no means a mean contribution. It is a giant contribution on which the Europeans, after the Renaissance, they thrived, built up, and modern science was developed. In this regard, I would just like to mention two things. That when often Caliph Ali, from the pulpit of the mosque in Kufa, which was his center of running the government, he used to say, "Salooni," ask me. And there is another very important saying by his son, Imam Hussain, the martyr of Karbala, that Husnul Sawal Nisful Ilm. A good question is half ilm. So with that, which have been the guiding lights for centuries to the upcoming scientists who had who assimilated knowledge from Greece, from India, from Egypt, and from far off China into a composite scientific endeavor and develop things for our use. So thank you very much for being with me.